Hey guys, how's it going? Here with a new video. So today we're gonna plant this tank, which I've showed the hardscape a few weeks before. It's a mountainscape, and for it we have these plants. It's a box full of tissue culture plants we're gonna use today. So and to help me out planting the tank, I got Luis, my son.
Hello everyone.
So, and we're just gonna start planting the tank. Before we can do that, we actually gonna go and use some filter floss to support the substrate, to prevent the substrate mixing with the sand. So we're just gonna use filter floss to shore up substrate. What you do is you get a piece of filter floss and you find where's the gaps where you believe substrate may collapse.
There.
So in the beginning this filter floss will be visible because it's white, but as time passes it will get darker and then it will become invisible.
I can tear the pieces and give them to you.
Yeah, you can do
It's
that.
easier. Don't you hold the rock in place? Some of it's falling over this side. Maybe there, fall there.
So this is a good technique to prevent substrate from collapsing, but there's others. Some of them are already being used in this layout. What you can do to prevent your substrate from collapsing, first of all, you can use your rocks. Basically, if you set up your rocks in strategic positioning, then they will help keep your substrate in place and prevent it from collapsing. Another way is you can use corrugated plastic, which is called, I actually knew it before by Substrate Supports. Green Machine sells it, but they sell it quite expensive. You can get this cheap on eBay. Just some sheets of corrugated plastic, a bit like plastic cardboard, similar. And you can cut it to size, stick it in the substrate in between the rocks, and that will stop your substrate from collapsing. Another way you can do, which is already being used here, is you can, if you have to bank the substrate up, you can use bags underneath with gravel, or in this case I'm using crushed lava rock, which is actually JBL volcano mineral. You can use that to help. It prevents the substrate from compacting, but it also prevents it from collapsing. It kind of helps keeping it in place. So, a few techniques I thought I could teach you to keep your substrate from collapsing, apart from the filter floss. The filter floss is actually mostly used to prevent the substrate from mixing with the sands, not as much to prevent it from collapsing, but it can also help to do the same job. Tissue culture plant from Tropica. This is a Aquascaping. And the benefits of tissue culture is that they are young plants grown in a laboratory, and they come with this gel that feeds the plants. The benefit from this plant is that even though they are younger, you get more plants for your buck, because if you check, you got all these plants here. This is a lot of plants. You can break this down into smaller pieces. You can break it to as small as you want. And you got a lot of plants. If you get potted, the plant will be far grown. It will be more grown in, but you won't get as much plants. The other thing is those plants are grown in an immersed state, which means when you put them inside the tank, they need to do the transition, which normally leads to submelting. They also can bring disease, pests, snails mostly, into your aquarium, because when they go to the shops, shop owners put them inside the tanks where, well, obviously there will be snails running around and they get on the plants. Eggs from snails get on the plants and they will go in your aquarium. So tissue culture these days is the way to go. I bet we only not use tissue culture when the plant I want is not sold as a tissue culture. So to remove the plant from here, you just push it like this. And then to get rid of the gel, you just try and remove as much gel as you can, because the gel is actually nutrient rich, so if it goes in your tank, it will create problems with algae. You can use some running water to remove it. So you should always buy good quality plants. If your plants are in good quality, there's a bigger chance that they're going to do well in the tank. If they die, if they're all yellowing, melting, then there's a big chance that when you put them in the tank, they're just going to melt and die. Anyway, now I'm going to teach young Louis here how to break these ones. So you can break it to as much as you want. So for here I break it in half, then I break it in half again, and then break it in half, and then you just go break it into smaller and smaller pieces. The more you break them, the more cover you give on your tank. So I normally don't like to break them too small. It's kind of like a lot of hard work, to be honest with you. George Farmer was known to have done years ago one pot aquarium. Basically he grabbed one pot of these and he planted an entire aquarium with this. Says it himself, it took him hours and hours of very hard work breaking these to pieces. I'm not about to imitate him. There's only one George Farmer. So you grab your plant and you just stick them like this. Ideally, you want to put as much plants as you can, so this will help you avoid algae. The more plants you have, the more nutrients they'll suck out of the water, and the less chances of you having algae issues there will be.
There. John. Heavy out those plants are done.
Thank you.
You need to move them?
Not yet. So Luis has been preparing the plants for me while I'm planting.
Want me to do the boxes away?
No, just keep it there for now.
I'm moving over there to check what's going on.
So this design needed a plant with small leaf. Originally I thought to put Cuba here because it has smaller leaves, but I wanted to create some sense of depth using smaller leaves further at the back and bigger ones at the front. So I figured, why not try Glosso here? If it doesn't work, then I'll replace it. But why not try Glosso at the front and Cuba more to the back. So let's see how that
Which one
goes.
has bigger leaves?
So now we're planting Marsilea crenata. And it's very similar to Glossostigma, but it grows darker and the leaves grow bigger. So apologize for the cat crying. My Misty, she also wants to assemble a fish tank. Fortunately, we're not about to let her do that. So
Probably does.
we're not about to let my cat assemble my fish tank.
You didn't like this one.
Now we're going to use Micranthemum. Micranthemoides. I think it's known as baby tears. And it's similar to Cuba, but it grows way bigger. It actually becomes a stem plant, which is later you can shape into a bush. But because here we're using tissue culture form, it looks like a carpet plant, but eventually it will grow into a bush. So now it's Storgania repens. This is actually a stem plant, but it can be used as a
They didn't see the plant.
carpet plant. But if you want to use it as a stem plant, it is in fact a stem plant. So I'm using it here as a stem plant. Some areas where the substrate is very low and hidden behind the rocks, and I hope the storo grows taller and will show behind the plants, behind the rocks. It doesn't have a very large leaf, but it's not the one, doesn't have the smallest leaf also, so beware.
That title goes to who?
Trim these plants hard, you're gonna push, you're gonna create a bush for you. And a very nice one because it has a really, really nice green color. This plant. It's gonna be a bit hard with this layout, keeping the sand clean. But in the end, I think it will be worth the effort. Now I'm going to try and use a technique called gradation, which is putting some smaller pebbles around the rocks to add detail. So generally, I like to do this by dropping the pebbles and letting gravity do the rest, position them. This way it looks more natural. Give it to me. And in time, these pebbles will mix with the sand and they'll give a very nice look, naturalistic look. Oh, it's enough. Yeah, we have too much already.
Well, that was your problem. I'm not good at what? Easier.
Next is Redwigia Super Red Mini. This is a stem plant, one of the easiest stem plants to grow red. You can actually do that in a wood deck. You can grow this plant red in a wood deck. So here we're not using
more sands.
low tech, but I'm still gonna use some Redwigia for some red details.
He is very, very, very cautiously looking at us.
Yes, I know. Okay. Now,
so let me check
I
how
think we have.
I can't see how it looks from here. Looks good. Looks really good.
Now we're putting Bucephalandra deep purple. Most people call this Bucephalandra. Apparently, it's actually pronounced Bucephalandra. It's a plant from Borneo, and it's for a few years now. This plant has been very sought of by hobbyists. This one is tissue culture. Always make sure you get your Bucephalandra's tissue culture, because as it's a very slow grower, if you pick it up from the wild, it will take, people will be picking it up from the wild faster. They can grow back, and people harvesting it in Borneo is putting the habitats, and this plant in danger. So just make sure when you buy your bouquet philandra, you do it from a reputable source, and you make sure it's tissue culture, so you don't help damage out the environment.
Going to finish the video.
And that's it.
We're done. We still have 1 part left.
And that's it. Planting done. Now what we have to do is fill up the tank. So this tank is dennerle scapers tank. It's using Neoscaper soil, pool filter sand, serious stone for hardscape. Underneath there's some bags with crushed lava rock, which is JBL volcano mineral. The plants are Glossostigma, Storigani repand on this area. We got Cuba here, and around these areas over here. Then on the top we got Micranthemoides. Here we got Woodwigia super red mini, and spread around in some areas we got some Eucaris SP mini. And finally, last but not the least, we got some Bouquet Philandra deep purple, which I put in between the rocks. It's a plant much like the Anubias that grows better stuck between the rocks or on hardscape. Doesn't do really good buried on the substrate. So time to fill in the tank.